The following film is the video portion of an E6-4 lesson. E6-4 is the computerized curriculum designed for home schools, Christian schools, family worship, Sunday schools, and church Bible study groups. For more information, visit the website at www.e6-4.com.
I once heard it said that once a baby begins to walk, the honeymoon is over. The little guy wants to run, climb, pull, and touch everything. And so in this session on toddler tips, we're going to be pulling from not only sources from Dr. Denmark, from other biblical resources as well. And so I think you'll find that the toddler years are actually years of great teaching, training, and fun. Well, I think we've all heard the expression terrible toddlers or terrible twos. And I want to provide you with some information today that may change how you think about toddlers and twos. And I want to challenge you even that the toddler years can be some of the funniest, greatest, and wonderful times with your children in building great relationships and great training. Instead of waiting to train your child when they're 2 and then wondering, oh, the terrible twos, I would say, let's start from birth. And we've done the Dr. Denmark session. And you may not realize it, but what I've experienced in my own life as a mother and with other mothers is by laying that groundwork of structure with my infant and then with my 1-year-old, continuing that structure on, that by the time they get to be a toddler and they're walking, the foundation is laid for them to know that I am their authority. And that is a very important issue in a parent and child relationship, for them to know you're the boss and they're not. How many times have you been out in a store somewhere where the child's saying, gimme, 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 or it's mine, and they rule the roost. And you know what? That does not have to happen. Those can be sweet years. So we're going to discuss a few things on how to make the toddler years and the terrible twos turn into something terrific. And so the different resources I'm going to use today are not just from Dr. Denmark's resources, but from a variety of sources. And we'll have that listed somewhere in your materials later. So here you go, your little bundle has gone from that simple in the arm stage, and now they're wanting to crawl. And when they get mobility, the freedom goes to their head. What do they want to do? They want to touch everything. They want to start whining for what they want. How many times have we seen a little one point and just start whining? And you know, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to turn into a zoo at that point. Your parenting can get really fun at that point. You must think as your home life as the school of life for that child. That is where that child is going to learn its manners, its respect, and how to present itself, how to speak properly. And so as soon as mobility comes upon that child through crawling or walking, that's when more training begins. You've laid the groundwork with a good schedule, and that has given the child an underlying notion that you are the boss, you are the authority, and that is so important for this next stage. So that's the first piece of the puzzle. The next piece is to not just turn that toddler over to whatever it wants, but to continue that consistent training. So I'm going to give you a few tips on how to do that, and for you to know that boundaries are good. As soon as that little baby starts to crawl and want to wiggle, I know one of the first issues that would come up with me is when that baby wanted to crawl is even the diaper change time. You have this little child that wants to crawl away and it's time to diaper change. So you pick them up, and what do they want to do? They want to arch their back and scream, ah, and they want down. And I say that is the very first moment that you teach them they cannot demand what they want. Because with that first arching of the back and that whining, if you let that continue, it can set a pattern for the terrible twos. It can lead on to them demanding other things. So when you pick up that child, that little crawler, the first time and hold it in your arms, and it wants to arch the back, you hold tighter and you whisper in that child's ear, hold mommy, and then you hold that child against you. Consistent, repetitive instruction in the toddler's life is very important. And so I'm going to give you some other consistent things to say. So you pick up that little one who wants to get down, they arch their back, you hold them tight against you, you say, hold mommy. And every time you pick them up, you whisper in their ear, hold mommy. So they know that that means to get closer and tighter to you. And if they don't, you might have to do a little smack on the hand. And anytime I discipline a younger child, it's not to be in anger, it's not to be yelling at them, it's not to be jerking them, it's just a little sting to get their attention. And you would always hold their hand underneath and one little smack on their hand or on that nice little fatty thigh. You know, when they get to about 6 months old and they're crawling, they get nice little thighs on them. And that's a great little place if a sting needs to happen. Remember, not a bruise, no, not in anger, but in instruction, godly instruction. And so you want to teach that child the importance of holding you when you know it's the appropriate time to be held. Because there are times where you might be at a mall or out in public somewhere where you don't want your child to crawl away or get away from you. It could be a dangerous situation. And so you want to teach that child that there are times when they have to stay in your arms. Maybe you're at church or a wedding or at someone's house. Keep that baby trained to stay in your arms and not arch their back. Maybe the next thing would be when you go to lay that baby down for a diaper change and they want to scream and roll over and crawl off and you need them to lay there. So an instruction you might give them for that is to just place your hand firmly on their little belly, because they're on their back, and say, lay still. Lay still. And every time you put them in that position, you're going to use the repetitive instruction of lay still. And if they don't, that nice little fatty thigh is there for you to help them in that. But you want to teach them, even at that crawler stage, that they cannot demand and do something different than you know is necessary at the moment. That is very important. You want to begin right at the beginning. Another thing you might notice is the baby may be whining for what they want. They may be looking at some food and you may be wanting to tell them it's not time, or maybe you want to tell them just to say please or thank you. Well, in some of the resources I've read, and I will certainly share those with you in a little bit, you can actually teach a baby basic sign language as early as 1 year old. They can say thank you, and they can go please. And so very often when a baby got to be about 1 year old and they're wanting something and learning they can point and get something into their hand, I would say please, say please. And they will learn very early to do this, even if they can't say anything. I've had some go, ease, you know, they'll say part of the word and do this. And you teach them please, and then when you give it to them, say thank you, and they will learn to say please and thank you. So anytime a nonverbal child will come up to you and instead of whining, you teach them to say please and thank you. And you'll be amazed at how a lot of that whining is cut down on if you start early and teach them that you're the boss and they're the child and you're going to train them. It's very important. I also, when I'm calling my child's name, even as early as a year and a half old, I will say, John, look at mommy. And I try to train my child that when they look at me, when I call their name and they look at me, I say, look at mommy. And I train them to look me right in the eye, because I've noticed that it's natural for a child, especially one that's trying to demand their way a little bit, they won't make eye contact with you. It's almost as if they think, well, if I don't make eye contact with them, I won't have to do what they say. So you want to train your child that to look you in the eye is very important. So let's review what we've got here. We've got the little crawler, and what do they want to do? They want to touch. You're going to say no if they touch something inappropriately. You don't have to clear out your house of everything. Remove the dangerous items, but some things leave there. It's a good testing ground. If they go to touch something they're not supposed to, have the courage to say no. Or you might even call their name and train them. John, look at mommy, and point to your eyes. No. And you make a quiet, firm no. Screaming and yelling and irrational nagging and scolding is not what child training is about. That's when we've lost our temper and we probably need to go sit in a chair somewhere. We want training to be constructive and positive. And so we want to, when they start to move around, we want to establish the boundary of no. We want to establish the boundary of saying please and thank you. Building the basis of respect and good manners. And that's very important. It eliminates a lot of that gimme, gimme, gimme. Another thing that I start with my 1 or 2 year old child is when they begin to be a little bit more verbal, I want to teach them how to say, may I please, for something, or would you please. If they would like for me to do something for them, to say, would you please, or if they want something, to say, may I please. And so I found that about the time I got to that second or third child that I was saying that a lot. Say, would you please, or say, may I please. And so I started adding another little sign language, and that was the three-finger rule. If a child came to me and said, water, they would just belt out a request, I would say, well, I would just hold up my fingers, and I would teach them that the three-finger rule means, may I please, or would you please? That this is how you begin a sentence when you want something. You don't just say, give me this, give me that. You add the three special words on the front of it. May I please have water, or would you please help me clean up my toys? So you teach them the basis of respectful speech. One thing that I really enjoyed learning out of J. Richard Fuggate's book, What the Bible Has to Say About Child Training, is the stop, no, and come rule. That, once a child begins to walk, they actually could be in danger. They could begin walking, and if they don't know to obey your voice, they could run out in front of a car, disappear in the parking lot at a mall, or run anywhere. Disappear into church, into one of the back rooms. You want to train them to very specific obedience to the words stop, no, and come. And there's kind of some fun, creative ways you can do that. A lot of times you don't want to train in the heat of a moment, and especially out in public. You're out at the mall and your child does something. That's really not the best training ground for a child. The best place is in the home, having some consistent downtime at home where you can train at home, so when you get out in public, you're not having all these embarrassing situations. And you can even threaten them. If you do your job at home and establish authority at home, then when you whisper in your ear, you know not to do that or you'll be in trouble when you get home, then they believe you. If they know that you're not going to do anything to them when they get home, then you can threaten them all you want to, and they'll just keep right on doing what they're doing because they don't believe you're really going to do anything. So you want to establish that authority, and the first three words for a newly mobile child that they really need to obey, absolutely, is the stop, no, and come rule. So let's look at the word stop. How do you teach a child stop? A lot of times you'll see a little toddler run and the mother say, stop. They just keep right on going. Well, there's a fun way to do it. And you do it when it's not an issue. You do it when you just kind of want to have a fun little playtime with your child. And you say, Johnny, we're going to play a new game today. And they usually love games. We're going to play the stop game. And you might put them on a rug like this and say, okay, ready? I'm going to say, run. Let's all run and chase each other. And you run around the room and they get all excited. And then you say, stop. And you say, oh, freeze your body like a soldier. Okay, let's run around again. Run around the room, run around the room. And all of a sudden say, stop. And you teach them the concept of the word stop. They're not born knowing those terms and what they mean. So instead of getting mad at them out in public because you say it and it doesn't work, practice at home what these words mean so that when you get out in public, you'll have those as protections for your children. So you play the stop game. You have them run around the room and then stop, and you practice running and stopping a few times. And you say, good, that is what stop means. And you say, someday we may go visit somebody or go out or to someone's house, and when Mommy says stop, that's what I want you to do. This. And you have them practice the concept of stop. And it really works great. And it could save your child's life at some point, especially if they're running out in the middle of a road. The next thing is the word come. They need to come when you call them. We can all think of scenarios when that would be important. And one way that I've taught the word come is, again, kind of make it a playful thing, play the come game. You put a child at one end of the room, and I know you can read about this, I think, in some of the EZO's preparation for parenting materials. You put the child at one end of the room, and you at the other end of the room, and you say, okay, Johnny, we're going to play the come game. Run and jump in my arms. And if he doesn't do it at first, then you may have to back up. What I've even had to do one time is put the child at one end of the room and me at the other, and I say, okay, I'm going to come to you, and I will run to the child, sweep him up in my arms. And then I would practice that until they would run to me and jump up in my arms. And that's the word come. That's the way you teach it. And so you say, all right, we're going to play the come game. Come. They run and they jump up in your arms. And you hold them tight and say, good, that is what I want you to do. When I say the word come, you run and jump up in my arms. So they must learn stop, come, and then, of course, the famous no. And, of course, two-year-old children have a reputation for being the ones that say, no, no, no. Well, you have to be the one to get them to obey your no. And usually that starts very early, really almost with a 6-month or 7-month-old crawling child, as they crawl toward that, doggy dish or something for that first time, and they reach out and you say no. And I have found that some of my children responded the first time just with the word They knew that there was something different in my voice. And they would look at me, and you would say, no, touch. Or I had other ones that they would hear the word no, and they would stare me down and reach anyway. And those are the ones that would have a little smack on the hand. They had to know that my no meant to stop whatever they were doing. So you start early with that. You start early with the no and the stop and the come, because those 3 words could save your children's life someday or prevent them from getting lost. It's very important. So consistency, a lot of people don't see where we're going with this. You know, the consistency in the early years prepares them for what's ahead. I mean, what is ahead? They'll be going to school. Won't you want them to obey their teacher if their teacher says stop, no, or come? Or if the teacher says sit in your desk for an hour and work on your school? You know, I'm an ex-public school teacher, and so I know well the reasons children don't obey at school. I think it's because they don't have that foundation of learning at home. You want to prepare your child to be successful in life, and there are lots of times ahead where they're going to need to obey an authority in their life. And so you're the one that needs to start that right from birth. You know, another fun little thing I taught my children to do out of a book called Creative Family Times is a concept called sit time. And this is a concept where you teach the child to actually sit in a chair for a few minutes at a time. So if you're at a church service or a wedding or at someone's house where you know they don't want your child roaming around the room, you want to be able to place them in a chair and for them to be able to stay there for a significant amount of time. And so I would usually start with a 1.5, maybe a 2-year-old, depending on the maturity of the child, of actually putting them in a chair with a little timer. And maybe if your child loves books or loves cars or a dolly, you put them in the chair with them, a chair with an arm so they won't fall out. And you would have a little timer. And you would ring the bell of that timer over and over again. And you would say, okay, now we're going to play sit time. I want you to sit in the chair and not move or get down until you hear the ring of the bell. And you practice that every day or a couple times a week, extending their time, starting with maybe 1 minute to 2 minutes to 3 minutes, and by the time they're maybe 2.5 or 3 years old, you want them to be able to sit in a chair for 30 minutes without getting down, because there's so many places where a child does not need to be running around the room. I know we have, I had one particular lady I was training this because her parents were older, and they just did not like children running around their house. They didn't appreciate that at all. And so she taught her children how to have sit time. So when they went to grandmother's house, she'd whisper in the children's ears, okay, we're at grandmother's house. It's time to do sit time. And the child knew instantly what the mother meant. And that's what home training does. It trains your child to what you mean when you say something. So they knew to go right over that chair and sit in that chair for at least 30 minutes. And that's an important concept. And that way you can take your child to a lot of new places. If you visit a new church or go to someone's new home and you know you don't want them roaming around, you know that they can sit next to you. So that is my encouragement to you, is in toddler training, is train at home. And don't be afraid to take that God-given authority upon yourself. And you will enjoy those little guys. Because when you eliminate some of these training issues and you get them generally respecting you and doing stop, no, and come and learning to speak respectfully, then you get to just have fun. Those toddlers are so cute and so comical, and they will bring the life and the fun to your home. So mainly by this little session, I just wanted to encourage you to realize that you can train your children early, and you can really realize what a blessing they are.
I was introduced to Dr. Denmark about 8 years ago. A friend of ours in Madison County used Dr. Denmark for her children as their primary pediatrician, and at the time she was 88. And so Dr. Denmark was 88. And she told me about Dr. Denmark, and I had one child, and we were doing the best we could, and we thought we were doing well, although we went through about 12 weeks of crying and lots of crying, and it wasn't on a schedule. And once I found Dr. Denmark and learned from her, and I realized I didn't have to do that, and I want other mothers to know that Dr. Denmark can help them to have a peaceful, calm, wonderful motherhood and not an anxious trying frazzled motherhood. So she helped me to realize that God instilled in me confidence to be a mother. He gave me a brain to think about what I needed to do to best help my children. I remember going to her office, the office that's was right out from her house in a little farmhouse kind of thing, and I was so impressed that she was the one that was there. She was the office manager and the receptionist and the business manager and the doctor, and all rolled into one, and she took care of the mother as well as the child, and she took the time to ask about how our house was, and did we have carpet or hardwood floors, and I didn't even know that might be an issue for your children because of allergies and cleanliness and that type of thing. And she was just kind enough to show an interest in our family life. And so Dr. Denmark has not only impacted the way my children have had a schedule and a feeding routine, but she's just impacted our entire family, the way we live, the things we choose to do, the money we choose to spend, and the wise choices we try to make for our children and for our whole family. My husband has wholeheartedly embraced her philosophy on schedules and feedings, because we went through almost at least the first year of not having Dr. Denmark's methods and philosophy with our first child, and seeing the transition from that year. It was a wonderful year, but at the same time it could have been even more wonderful. And having Dr. Denmark's methods from the beginning of our second child's birth, and then our third and fourth child as well, things have just fallen into place so easily, and it's just been enabled us to experience the joy of parenthood even more. And so it's funny, because Jeff will tell new fathers, about Dr. Denmark, so that they can pass that along to their wives. And I've had people to call that he's mentioned Dr. Denmark to find out more about her and what she recommends. And I have a friend now who I've lent a copy of my Dr. Denmark book, Every Child Should Have a Chance, to her, and she's poring over it and making notes and really excited about. And this will be her third child, and so she's ready to make some changes and to be able to enjoy her children even more through this. And I think just knowing that it's okay to be an authority in your home, and that the child, one thing that I remember, I'll never forget her saying to me, is that child is coming into your family. Your family is already established, even if it is your first child. Your husband and yourself are a family, and that child is coming to join you. You're not supposed to be revolving around the child. And so once you add the child to your family, it's a happy home when they adjust to your schedule, and you're not trying to figure out what their schedule is and their pattern is, and then everyone else is secure, and they know what to expect, and it's predictable, and they're content, and that makes a happy home when you have content children.
Well, Dr. Denmark did far more than just help me get my babies on a schedule or sleeping through the night. I mean, those were great benefits, especially having 7 children in 11 years. But she actually took the time to disciple me. And any time I went by her office or called her on the phone, she would take time to answer each motherhood question that I had. She was what I call the great-grandmother that I always wanted to have. And she had such a mother's heart. Not only was she professionally sound as a pediatrician, but she had that mother's heart, and she wanted to pass on to me and to every other woman that was calling her or talking to her that same love, that passionate love for children, and that those thoughts about training the next generation, not just looking at who we are and what we're doing right now, but how what we do with our children will impact their lives and the lives of our grandchildren as our children turn around and they will at some point have to train their children. So she became a life mentor of mine. And even as I saw her last Monday, she's 107 years old, and I went to visit her. Just being in the room with her, she's been one of the people that have inspired my entire life. And she was able to continue, as she did on Monday when I was talking to her, encouraging me to keep up the good work with the children. Don't give up on them. Keep training them, keep loving them, keep pouring my life into their lives and into the lives of now the women that call me on my phone asking me her questions as the end of her life is coming. She now has poured into women like myself, and we are in turn now turning out and pouring into that younger generation of women that are coming along.
Well, she just means so much to me. I'm so thankful. Looking back over the years, my oldest is now 9, and I just think of knowing her these 9 years and the things that she has poured into me. So many memories that I have of driving that hour and a half it took me to get to her office, many times with sick little children. Just knowing that when I got there to see her, she would help us with whatever the illness was, but she would also just, it would be like a shot in my arm to give me strength and renewed energy to be a mom and to do a good job, to be the mother that I needed to be. Such an encouragement as I've never experienced from another woman before, and she, to me, is just the wisest woman on earth. So much wisdom, and she's so willing to share, to pour it into others, and then, like you said, to have us pass it on. So many times she said to me, it's your mission work to go pass this on to other mothers. And then when the phone starts ringing and they want to sit across the table or have the phone call with a new mom, to be able to someone who's hungry for this information, you could just pass it on. I feel so thankful for that every time that I got to go to her office and sit with my little notepad of questions always, and she patiently hour and a half sitting there answering all of my questions until the last one was finished. And that, I guess, just she pouring into us allows us to pour into others. When I think of my 4 children that I had in 5 years, and what a joy that has been for our life, for our whole family, for my husband and me, and how different it would have all played out had I not known about the Dr. Denmark schedule, and how probably chaotic it would be. It's just fun now, it's just fun, but if we had not had the schedule, it would be hard for me to imagine that it could be a wonderful, enjoyable time, and that I would still think what a gift from God the children are, and just to have a happy family really is a piece of heaven on earth, and I'm so thankful for all that Dr. Denmark taught me.
I am so glad that you have taken part in this Mother to Mother series. I have a passion for helping mothers like yourself become equipped and empowered to love and train your children. Motherhood is the most important job you could ever have, and hopefully through this series you can realize that children truly are a gift from God. God bless you in your mothering.
Women in the United States today will put their babies in the nursery this morning, and that baby will stay there till 6 o'clock tonight, come home to a tired mother and a tired father, and as long as that baby stays in that nursery and exposed to other little children, he's going to be sick for the first 7 years of his life. I think that's what happens to a lot of mothers today. They've got tremendous education, and they can't say that I can't stay home and waste my education on a child. I've got to get out and do something worthwhile. Now, we've the old adage that's been since the beginning of time, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And that's going to always be true. The way the women go, so goes the world. Now, when you take the baby out of the cradle and put the economy in, then somebody's got to make the people that's going to take her place. You see what I mean? And nobody can make that except a mother. So we've got to go back, if we want to save this world, we've got to go back and letting women realize when they bring a baby into the world that they should give that baby a chance. You don't know when that baby's born whether you have in your hand the President of the United States or somebody in the slums. Now, if it all come back looking like the wrath of God, I'd quit. But when I see one of these poor little flowers that's thrown in the trash pile, raise its head again, then that makes me want to do one more.
The film you have just watched is the video portion of an E6-4 lesson. E6-4 is the software curriculum that provides education with a strong biblical worldview. Be sure to visit the website at www.e6-4.com and sign up for our newsletter to stay informed about new lessons available or special events. One of the many features of E6-4 is the student-directed learning mode, where the student is free to choose from dozens of lessons in over 20 categories, including math, reading, history, science, and the Bible. Another feature is the father-directed learning mode, where a father or classroom teacher can create an individualized lesson plan for each student, and the software will teach the student one section at a time, keeping records of his progress. A third feature is the family worship mode, which is ideal for family worship, school chapel services, family Sunday school classes, or church Bible study groups. Once you set up your lesson plan, this mode offers instruction and catechism, one lesson section at a time. Reminds you to do prayer, Thanksgiving and praise, Bible memorization, and includes a complete music section with songs and hymns for worship. Each song can be played with or without the vocals. Another E6-4 feature is the competition mode, where you create a lesson plan and the program randomly selects question sets from the lessons to create a fun and exciting competition, which can be as small as the competition our family does every day in our daily family worship, to as large as the Southeast Bible competition we conducted with multiple rounds and prizes, including a new laptop computer and tickets to a major theme park. Another feature is Apples of Gold, a computerized parlor game for more advanced students, where two clue givers devise clues to help their teams come up with a phrase from the Bible. To purchase the E6-4 software, visit the website at www.e6-4.com. To schedule the Homeschool Advantage to come to your church or homeschool conference and teach your people how to use computer software to build strong biblical households, contact Captain Bret at 678-570-2195 or email terabenth@inbox.com.